What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the MG YouTube channel. I'm your host, MacroHard, CEO of Lead Automation Lead Properties and investor in Tesla. So, this is a Tesla video. It's not an FSD video. However, we are in FSD right now, version 14.2.2.4, just so you know. So you'll see, like, basically the car just driving itself and all that good stuff. But I had kind of an epiphany last night while I was watching, like, this 3-hour-long podcast with Elon Musk. And it's about digital Optimus. Whenever I started hearing the term digital Optimus, I was kind of thinking like it was like stupid. I was like, what is a digital Optimus gonna do? What is it gonna be, a simulated version of Optimus? I didn't really grasp the concept of what this digital Optimus is. And it came to me last night exactly what digital Optimus is. And really, the digital Optimus, I really think they should have used a different term, because it really doesn't have much to do with Optimus itself, as it is just another word, right? So don't think about digital Optimus as the Optimus robot and then just like a digital form of Optimus robot, because it's not that. What it is, it's actually part of Tesla's program, MacroHard, which they're basically building out a massive data center or whatever. It is Tesla, right? Oh man, don't let me get this confused, guys. Okay, I might be wrong. If it's not Tesla, it could be Space, or it could be XAI, which is now owned by SpaceX. But it's digital Optimus, so I think it is Tesla, because Optimus is with Tesla. It's hot. So basically, the premise of what they're doing is they're essentially creating a emulator that acts like a human. What does that mean? Well, I'll break it down in an example. Let's say, for instance, you go and you are doing some work on a computer, right? You have to go, click, open up Word documents, go over here, click, type some things out, go over there, click, do some things, right? And you're going on to Chrome, and you're going to a website and all that good stuff. Now, one of the things that AI, for example, Grok or Gemini or any of the AI models, it actually does a really good job right now for like a web crawler, aka going and searching the internet, and then also being able to provide you back links and stuff like that. I actually use this a lot with like our properties companies, where like say for instance, there's like some like residential piece of hardware that we need, and it's like dated from like the 80s, or it's just not a common standard. And or if you don't know this about like residential houses, there's different sizes of different things, right? So like when it comes to like plumbing, you have PVC, CPVC, PEX, all these different things. Well, something like PVC is not the same size as CPVC. So if you have 3/4 of one and 3/4 of the other, they're not the actual same measurement. So with that being said, there's a lot of other stuff inside properties like that are they either are a conversion piece and or it's just like an antiquated thing. It's something they used back in the 1970s and they don't use it today, and now it's an extremely hard item to get a hold of. And or there's things that are proprietary, like there's gas lines. I'm getting off into a side tangent. Point being is, you can go to these AI models and you can have it basically research and not only get the proper part with the proper specifications, but you can have it provide you back the links. There's even some things that are like super simple. Like I'll type in like 90-degree elbow in like Menard's app, and it shows me like 50 different things. It's not what I want. I want a 90-degree elbow. Well, so a lot of times I just go to Grok. If I look and like I scroll a couple times and I don't see what I need, boom, Grok, go find me this thing at Menard's. Boom, provides me the link. I click the link, I go buy. You know what I mean? So this saves a bunch of time, especially when you're doing a project that has a bunch of different parts and stuff like that. Which, by the way, if you're doing property renovations, I advise that you do a lot of the procurement things yourself, because it opens up a door for people to be fraudulent. I personally haven't had that issue yet, but I've seen people do it, and I've experienced other people doing it and stuff like that. So just like be careful. But point being is, so I handle a lot of the procurement process for different materials and stuff like that. Plus, I'm really good at calculating them due to my engineering background. So taking that same example of going and crawling on the web to get that link, right? Super useful in that scenario. Now, where it lacks is it can't do anything else for me. Like, it can't, like let's say, for instance, I've said, hey, put this into a Word document for me, or hey, build out an Excel spreadsheet that puts all these things in it. It doesn't really have that capability. Now, Gemini with Google Workspace, I really like Gemini for the fact that they have the workspace ecosystem, and they've already been working on it for like a couple of years now, like integrating Gemini into the different workspaces. So like when you have Gemini do something, it'll spit you out like basically a table. Grok can do some of the same things as well, but the way Gemini does it, it's like it actually spits you out like almost like a Google Sheet export that you can literally like download and upload it as a Google Sheet. But that's one layer of what its capability is, and it's also a layer of where its limitation of its capability is. So basically MacroHard has taken things to the next step, right? So let's say, for instance, that you wanted to take that same process and you wanted to just take it to the next level. Like, let's just say, hey, I want you to take that Google Sheet, save it into our properties folder, label it this, do that, blah, 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 right? I know I'm being like super general at this very moment, but I'm kind of drawing a blank on like a really good example. But point being is, it would actually be able to not only generate that Google Sheet, it'd be able to save that Google Sheet as a not necessarily a link, but everything in Google is actually links, really. Save it into the exact drive folder that you want to save it into. I hate you stupid people, dude. Dude, you know how to fucking go around, you fucking crackheads? Sorry. People frustrate me, like whenever you got your turn signal on and there's a 2-lane road and they don't get over. Okay, so basically, MacroHard is not only looking to do something like with Google, or like Gemini has the capability of doing. I think Gemini, which is Google's AI, will get to a point where it's also doing these things, but with Google, they're doing it for Google products, meaning you're going to have more integrations for Drive, you're going to have more for Docs, Sheets, probably PowerPoint, probably everything in their platform, tasks. They're going to definitely create a AI suite that works with those softwares. The major differentiate is that MacroHard is anticipating to work with all softwares, every and any software on your computer. For example, when it comes to like our automation company, and let's say, for instance, some of the engineering that goes on in that, we have PLC programming that uses a software called Studio 5000. We have robot programming, which is in RoboGuide. There's a RoboGuide software, which is a simulated robot software for FANUC robots. You have, your SolidWorks for mechanical engineering. And MacroHard is essentially trying to get to a point where it can examine that screen feedback and then do the outputs of the things, right? Hey, I need you to build me a shape that's this size, this big, blah, 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 be able to talk to it. I do think mechanical engineering is going to be one of the hardest things to tackle. I think programming will be a lot easier to tackle than programming would be a lot easier to tackle than mechanical engineering, because mechanical engineering, you're taking a visual concept, having to communicate it through words or text, and then it's having to output that image. Now, if you can do like how you can with like Grok and talk to it and say, hey, this is what I want you to do. This is this is what I want you to do. Hey, I need more contour here. Hey, I need you to round these corners there. Okay, and rotate the part. And it's kind of like almost like you're talking to it, and it's visually doing all the things that you want it to do. All right, give me an aerial view of the part. Okay, give me a left side view of the part, or top down view of the part. You could just talk to it, and it can just do those things. Now, somebody who's very proficient in like mechanical engineering, that'll be something that's like fairly easy to them. I don't come from a mechanical engineering background. I can concept, automation systems and all that really well, because I understand constraints and all those good things. But I actually come from more of like the programming, PLC, robot, electrical engineering. That's more of my background. So when it comes to operating the mechanical engineering software, it's one engineering gap that I have, that if I could do mechanical engineering, I could literally design entire robotic systems myself and need no other engineer. So, like, point being is like somebody like myself who understands all the constraints, the importance of controlling the part, the importance of like work holdings and clearances and all these good stuff, right? It will give somebody like me now the capability to basically have another like mechanical engineer by my side. And so essentially MacroHard is going to go and do these same things with every other software. Not only will it be able to help me with like PLC code and robot code, I mean, we're probably getting to a point within the next couple of years that you're going to be able to write PLC code, robot code, in literally simple language. Like, you're getting to a point now where you can even have an AI, especially write like robot code or structured text code for a PLC. Ladder logic is a little bit more challenging because it's programmed more with like symbols. I think there's a workaround around it. I haven't personally done it myself, but my point is that it's going to be able to, take whatever took us a month to engineer, mechanical, PLC, robot, electrical, and be able to potentially consolidate it down into a day. Right, go in there and I write out a whole prompt, say, hey, here's the system, here's what it needs to do. Maybe even load in a part model, like a 3D model of the part that we need to handle. Potentially, if it's coming off of some other machine, load in the model of that machine there, and then from there, give the AI prompt, tell it exactly all the things that it needs, whether you're texting it out or whether you're just talking to it. Say, hey, I'm gonna need the PLC code for this, the robot code for this, the mechanical engineering, blah blah blah, right? Tell it the robot brand that it's gonna be using, PLC brand that it's gonna be using, and then it's just gonna generate all the different outputs. Here's the conveyor. Here's the robot that we need to use for this project. Here's the da 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 da, right? And so it's going to basically be able to spit all this out. And this is one of the main powers with AI. It's not one of the main powers with AI. It is a major advantage of AI, is the fact that AI is acting as like a supercomputer, meaning if I wanted to try to run this same process directly on my computer, if, let's just say, for instance, I had the hardware to do so, it would probably take a month of processing time for it to output the all the engineering data. and especially the mechanical engineering data. Mechanical engineering data is one of the heaviest data forms. I think it could spit out the PLC code, robot code, just like that. That would be pretty quick. The mechanical engineering side of things will take so much compute power that it's probably the equivalent of like 1,000 computers. Just because, a mechanical engineer who really wants to be proficient at their job, they have to have like graphics cards and stuff like that, and they have to be running a high-end computer just to make sure they can engineer efficiently. If not, like the software hangs up, and that's with a human clicking and scrolling and stuff like that. And if MacroHard does the clicking and the scrolling similar to a human, however, it can do it 10 times faster, because humans, we have to physically move the mouse. We have to physically type the keys. Whereas if it needs to type something out, it just goes and it spits out paragraphs in like milliseconds. So if it's having its own internal dialogue, even our own human internal dialogues, unless something comes to us as an image in our mind, our verbal dialogue is still about the same speed as our speaking dialogue. Therefore, if we're having like a communicative thought in our head, like, okay, if I did this, if I did that, if I did blah, 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 that's a slow process. Whereas with the AI, you have a brain that can process so fast, like instantaneously. Again, spitting out paragraphs, something that would take us basically the same rate that it would take us to read it, is the rate at which it can just, it can spit out the entire paragraph in the same time frame that it would take us 5 minutes to read, and literally taking like milliseconds. And so it can have its own internal dialogue, like, hey, no, we need to do like this. No, we need to try that. Hey, da da da. And if you ever use Grok, and this is one of my favorite things about Grok, and some of the AIs have this as well, but it tells you what it's doing right now. Hey, going to the internet. Hey, I think that we're doing this. Hey, I think that we're doing that. And some of the things process so quickly that you can't even read what they're saying, because there's like, no, not that, not that, not that, not that, not that, da da da. Okay, and it's processing on to the to whatever the next thing is. It already has asked the question, made a determination, and moved on to the next thing before like it even basically pops up on the screen. And there's probably a ton of messages that don't even try to populate on the screen because it scrolls through them so quickly. I think that whenever it's doing like more web searches and is really digging and crawling around the internet, then it gives you those feedbacks and tells you what it's searching, and over to the side it tells you what website it's currently searching on. The MacroHard and this Optimus digital robot is going to be able to do that. Again, it's different than the physical robot. It's nothing really the same. It's more of the equivalent of a virtualized human keyboard situation. And I want to jump real quick also into what makes this so important. And I've kind of already touched on it, but I'm trying to put my epiphany that I'm having in my mind into this video, and it's very hard because it's a vision, basically. I see, and so it's hard to speak. MacroHard is essentially going to give you the capability to operate any software at ridiculous speeds. The words just don't match its capabilities. Like, you literally can't put into words how much it's gonna match its capabilities. I mean, because like somebody like myself who's very proficient, and if I have the proper AI tools that can truly function like that, I could probably do like 50 people's work if I had an AI tool like that where I could just talk to the AI. I could probably be doing 50 automation projects in one go and be able to have all the engineering done for those projects in like probably less than 30 days. Just do a project a day. Boom, 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 boom. And maybe maybe there'll be limitations with the macro. I mean, there'll definitely be limitations on the MacroHard. It's not going to work perfectly at first, just because it has to learn the nuances of the software. However, one great thing about AI is it can go read every inch of the documentation. This is the software I'm using. Here's the documentation, the commands for everything that I need to do to operate this software, and then boom, it knows it. It basically studied it, got a 4-year degree, not even 4-year degree, like a PhD in SolidWorks in an instance. It's going to know commands. If you knew anything about like mechanical or electrical engineering, like you do commands, like, for electrical engineering, you might type L enter for line, and then you go click to make a line. Or I think like FU for like fuse, and then boom, it populates a fuse, and you go click it where you want it at. And so that same click, typing in those letters and stuff like that, it's going to be able to do all that stuff instantaneously. That's not what I'm getting at. What I was getting at was it's going to know every single command. It's going to know commands that you didn't even know existed. Like if you just took a skilled mechanical engineer who's been doing mechanical engineering for, let's say 10 years or something like that, there'll still be commands that they don't know because they just have their workflow that works for them, right? They're not going into the documentation and researching, daily or something like that until they run into a problem where they can't get through it. Then they'll go into the documentation and research it. Whereas the AI will have basically the documentation in the back of its mind at all points in time, which means there may be a better, more efficient command to do a particular thing. There might be commands that give you more details. Now I'm speaking outside of my expertise, but like, say for instance with mechanical engineering, and I keep using mechanical engineering as an example because it is one of the most complex things. But when it comes to like mechanical engineering, you can basically specify if something's like a solid. You have to specify what material type it is. You have to specify like what grade of material it is. You have to specify like surfaces. And then I'm not sure if this is after the mechanical design. I think this might be like a, what do you call it? A finishing software. Where basically, you basically say what's the finish of this. Should it be polished? Painted? What's the outcome of what we should do with this this material after we make it? So there's a lot of things that you can bake into a 3D model that maybe you wouldn't normally do because I'm just trying to get this done. I just need the bare minimum to get this thing manufactured and machined and get it out the door, right? Because in this line of work, it's always about engineer as fast as possible so we can get the 2D drawings of it, so that way we can get it sent over to the machine shop and then get it machined and get it assembled, right? So everything's like, how can we move this faster? How can we move this faster, right? I also think this would be very powerful too with 3D printing, additive manufacturing, because it will give everybody the ability to design, and basically anything and everything like, it might be one of those things where in the future everybody owns a 3D printer because like, oh, I broke this thing on my lawnmower. Hey, Grok, make me a new thing for my lawnmower. This is the model of my lawnmower. 3D print you whatever new part that you need, attach it, done. We might get into a realm of additive manufacturing being a huge thing. Especially, this might be a business I have to start, which I think there's already some versions of this. It's just a matter if they're executing it right. But it's basically to create a website where somebody could talk to an AI, design the part for them, 3D print the part for them, and then ship it to them. I don't know. Just an idea. I think there would be huge opportunity in that. But yeah, so I mean this goes for all different softwares. This can work in video editing, photo editing, You know, it's going to have the feedbacks, the visual feedbacks of, you know, of what would be on the screen, you know, and be able to optimize it to a science, right? Because it knows, it can look at like the mathematics of like colors, and it can even run like an AI layer on it to like alter the image if you wanted to. Same as like a filter. You know what I mean? Think about filter. I'm thinking about a light thing, but filters are literally a filter you lay over top, right? Filter doesn't AI process and bake itself in. Like, oh, hey, I got this filter, but actually I need that filter to be a little bit lighter here. I need it to be a little bit darker there. You know, here's the human right here. Let's make them a little bit lighter so that way we're not, you know, masking them too much. And so it's going to be able to process all these different things to like a mathematical science. And so point being is, this is freaking massive. Yeah, I don't know when we're going to have this in our hand. You know, Elon's saying that we'll have the possibility of having it by like end of year. I'll be really curious to see how well it operates, what software limitations it has. Is it going to be able to do things like mechanical engineering? I do think mechanical engineering will become one of the last things. But also in Elon's podcast, he was talking about doing chip design and doing chip design with like MacroHard, or AKA Virtual Optimus. And if you can do chip design, that's very equivocal to mechanical design. Because I would assume, I don't know if they're using SolidWorks, or if they're probably using something very, very custom to chip designing, because it's going to have things built into it that are optimized for like testing chips and testing chip performance, like a simulator basically. My point being is, if it can do something like that, and it could also be tailoring the MacroHard to work on their internal specific things first, because they're going to get such a boost in efficiency. It's like one of those things where, like, do you sell something like this to the public, or is it such a massive value driver? Does it make sense for us to just fucking own it and then have a million digital employees, digital Optimuses? What if Tesla decided to hoard all the digital Optimuses, and then they literally came in and just took everybody's job, basically became the government? By the way, this is my advice to Tesla. This is my thought on this. Our government's not going to step in really and do this universal income thing whenever AI basically disrupts us. We're probably going to go through depression for some period of time before the government decides what they're going to do to adjust things. I mean, they'll probably print money at that point, but then are they bankrupting our country, or whatever they're going to do? Are they going to apply tax on AI? My advice is, for a company like Tesla, they need to pay a dividend on their investment. Now, most people will say, I don't want Tesla to pay a dividend because I want them to continue their growth plan and their growth strategy and focus primarily on that. I do agree. I am with the fact that they should be deploying most of their money into the next thing, right? My next thing to that is, if we always live for the future, we're not living for the now. And at some point in time, if these technologies are going to be that disruptive, we have to find a way to pay out that amount of money to the people. How do you do that? You dividend to shareholders. Now, that doesn't solve the problem for everybody, but it could invite more people to invest in Tesla. Like I'm going to give you an extreme example that has never been seen before. That, let's say, for instance, Tesla said, I'm just using an extreme example. let's say Tesla hits $500 a share. Then let's say Tesla is going to give out $500 a month for every shareholder. And so now it's people's choice on a monthly basis. Do they want to put their money back into the stock and then get another 500 next month? Or do they want to, how do they want to go about this, right? Do they want to just keep that money and just make that 500, make that 500, make that 500, make that 500? Why am I using such a freaking crazy example? Because what we're talking about is so crazy. This is what abundance means. Abundance means that there is no limit. Abundance means that we all have enough. And I think Tesla with dividends is one, a good way to support people who have been there for Tesla, have believed in Tesla, or investors in Tesla, help drive the company forward. I think that it's a great reward for them to pay that out to investors and be able to do it at a scale of abundance. Like let's say, for instance, if we said, let's just say we did like this: robo-taxis, Optimus robot, virtual Optimus, and now we've basically conquered everything, right? The only thing that we haven't really conquered is like aerial flight, which SpaceX is doing. But maybe Tesla or SpaceX needs to get into flight, like just normal airplanes, and then just disrupt that industry as well. That way you have like every mode of transportation taken care of. And that way, you're going to be at the stage of abundance where, or I don't want to say abundance, of resources that literally everything's covered. Like we're literally to a point where there are no limitations, right? The biggest thing is we have to get through the transition period. At some point in time, everything can just be free to some degree. I think that there needs to be some metric of like paying for things that let's say rewards people or punishes people for like let's say lack of care, aka my kids are out here jumping on my hood of my car. Well, I guess that's not a good example, but somebody's out here jumping on the hood of their car, denting it all up and stuff like that. No, I ain't worried about it. Let's go get another one. I'll just take this one back and they'll fix it, and I'll go get another one. You know what I mean? So that person like that's damaging their vehicles or damaging whatever their thing is, right? It's all basically free, but everything's on a scale of like, okay, if you're out here just destroying things, then I don't want to go to a star system, but you could have like a star system and say, hey, well, if you're on this star system, which is like similar to credit almost, we're not going to let you get that thing because you don't take care of shit. We're gonna have to transition into that at some point in time. If we can actually get to a point where everything's free, and we're going through this period of time too where people are investing in these companies, when it actually happens, that in that phase of time, some people will become so ridiculously wealthy that it'll like completely separate. I mean, this is probably bigger than like owning Amazon whenever it opened to today's date. Like $10 is worth like $1 million today. Like it's gonna be that type of difference of investment, if not more. And so, yeah, I don't know. This is just crazy. I wanted to make this video talk about MacroHard. I haven't really personally heard anybody really explain Digital Optimus. And maybe I can make it like a more concise video on this topic. and break down a little bit more of break it down in more of a concise video, maybe more details, examples, something like that. But hopefully this helped you understand. If you enjoy this type of content, smash that like button or subscribe or whatever it is that people do here on YouTube. And I'll catch you in the next one. We talk about investments. We talk about Tesla stock. Talk about business, entrepreneurship. Same thing. Catch y'all. Peace.